So I'm going to show you how to add a tail, but I'm not just going to show you how to add a tail. I'll also show you what you should do if you want to prep that tail for animation. Because I feel like generally, if you're adding a tail to your model, you're probably going to want to see a little bit of movement to make it feel not so stiff. Totally optional, but it's nice to have the option anyways. For that, you're going to want to be familiar with the pivot tool and how that works. I'll re-explain it in this video. I did explain it in a previous video as well, though, if you want to visit that. But that is an important piece of information, and the second piece of information you're going to want to be privy to first is knowing that whenever you add new blocks on the outliner, the most important ones for animation are going to be the folders. The folders are going to dictate what you can animate. So if I were to go to the top right here where it says Edit, Paint, Animate, and I were to click Animate, it's only going to show me the folders, and those are going to be the ones that I can actually move and animate with later. If I were to, like this flower, I can only animate the entirety of the flower. If I want to move the individual petals, I would have to go back here, and I would have to put them each in their own folder, right? And now that it's in a folder, it appears in my animate tool. So whatever it is that you prepare for animation, you want to make sure that those blocks are in their own folder. So let's actually get to making a tail. For that, you're going to want to make sure it's in the body folder. Again, remember that the folder, the main folder, the parent or root folder, is going to dictate how everything moves. So, everything that is inside of the body folder is going to move with the body. For this, I'm going to make a group, and I'm just going to call this the base of the tail. I'm going to add a cube, and I'm just going to make a really quick tail. Let's say I really want to make this guy look like this, and I'll rotate it a little bit like that. Okay, I'm going to add a second segment, mid segment. That's the wrong one. This is just the cube. For that, I'm going to move this right here. Again, you can click Shift or Command and Control for more refined movement. Let's say I like that. And then I will add tail tip and put a cube inside of that. And let's say I really like this tail, right? Great. I've given my cat a tail. If you don't want to animate it, if you really don't want to, that's all you need to do. Just make sure these folders are correctly aligned with the body so that when your body moves, the tail moves with it. Wonderful. Let's say you actually want to prep it for whatever reason for animation. You're just going to want to make sure you move the pivot tool, because every single folder inherits the pivot tool of the previous folder. So in this case, the base tail inherited the pivot tool of the top of the body. So if the base of the tail was to rotate, it would rotate along this big arc. That is not what we want. We just have to grab the pivot tool. Grab the pivot tool. There we go. And drag it over here. You're going to want to have it at around the top middle-ish part of the tail for the base. And then you're just going to do the same for the rest of the folders. Make sure it is for the folder. So I'm taking this one, and now I'm putting this one in the middle of my tail segment. And this last one, pivot tool please. Sometimes it doesn't cooperate. I'm putting that one in that middle of the tail. So now, if the tail was to rotate, now it's rotating from the appropriate segments on my tail. And you can see that the tail has a bit of Z fighting going on. I also explained that, I think, in the same, where I explained vertex snap. If you want to fix that, you just have to, resize it by like a small amount. There we go. I'm inflating each of these cubes by a teeny amount that is not really visible, but prevents the bugging out. And that is really all you need to do to prepare this for animation, and that applies to just about anything that you add. Just make sure that the pivot point is in the correct place, because that is one of the most common issues you might run into when preparing something for animation. But that's it. You have a tail. You can add as many cubes in here as you want. I like using flat faces like this for my tails. I'll put a little screen picture of some things that you can do with these flat faces. But when you do a flat face like this, you can just color it in, and it'll look neat. It'll look like it's fur on top of your character. But yeah, have fun.